The arcade. It's a magical place most of us unfortunately cannot enjoy anymore, but allow me to set the stage. The year is 1980, Jimmy Carter is president, pop music is everywhere, and things are starting to get a lot more neon. One of the coolest and most radical places to be hanging out at is the arcade. Rows of glowing screens, the noise of chatter and coins being slotted into machines. It was a haven for video game lovers. At the time, video games were easily accessible and coming to the forefront of popular culture. 3 years before, in 1977, the Atari 2600 was released and, well, video games were becoming mainstream. By 1980, arcades were getting hit with classics like Pac-Man, Centipede, and Defender. The arcade was full of people attempting to put in enough hours and quarters to hopefully have their initials flash on the high score screen. During this time, a video game by the name of Berserk hit the scene, and the gameplay was simple and addictive. Players would take control of a green stickman going through maze-like rooms, shooting robots, hoping to get far enough to grab that high score. But how far could somebody go for that chance, especially while being chased by Evil Otto? You'd think it was just like any other arcade cabinet of the time, but you'd be wrong. In one specific location, something weird was happening. Now, weird and mysterious arcade machines are no new thing. One of the most famous mysteries possibly of all time resides within the Polybius arcade cabinet and everything surrounding it. There were deaths, a possible conspiracy, and much, much more. Without getting fully into the topic itself, it's a subject that fascinated Jiff and I so much that the mega video Ahoy made on it is actually the inspiration for this entire channel, and is absolutely worth a watch if you've never seen it before. And due to the infamy of Polybius itself, it's actually something you might want to keep in the back of your mind going forward. Was this specific mystery too akin to a Polybius, or was it deeper than that? Deep in Illinois, in Calumet City, the arcade, Friar Tuck's, housed its very own Berserk cabinet. The town was situated just 30 minutes from Chicago. By 1981, it too was a haven for gamers in the local area, and soon Berserk would make its name known around Friar Tuck's. In January of 1981, a 19-year-old man by the name of Jeff Dailey would make his way to the Berserk cabinet. He managed to put his initials twice into the game, achieving the score 16,6600 right before dropping dead. That's it. This is the first of many very mysterious events regarding this arcade cabinet, as things were just getting started. Just a year later, the next incident would occur. In April of 1982, 18-year-old Peter Burkowski was playing Berserk at Friar Tuck's, and a little while after achieving a solid score, he suddenly died and was taken to the Lake County Deputy Coroner, where he was pronounced dead of a heart issue. As if this all wasn't enough, there was one more incident even after all of this, for the final tale regarding Berserk within Friar Tuck's. 6 years later, in 1988, an altercation inside broke out between 16-year-old Pedro Roberts and Edward Clark Jr. The fight led outside and ended with Pedro stabbing Edward. How the fight broke out is completely unknown due to how long ago it occurred, but legend says that they were fighting over a chance to play Berserk, which honestly just sounds insane at this point. With these three incidents now explained, it's no wonder why this game has the absurd reputation it has. 3 deaths all in front of one arcade machine. And not only that, but the deaths happened in very strange ways as well. So is there truth to the supposed curse here, or does it all begin to fall apart the deeper you search? Well, let's go through the 3 incidents again, this time applying context. For our very first incident, searching through forums and records, there were 2 Jeff Daileys who lived in the right area, but they were both elderly, while the Jeff we know is around 19 in the story. An appropriately aged Jeff was found around the same year, but this Jeff passed away in Virginia from a car accident, not a cursed cabinet. I couldn't find any proof that Jeff Dailey was killed by a video game, and as such, it's believed by some that this is just a complete urban legend to further the creep factor of Friar Tuck's now infamous Berserk cabinet. To make this case even easier regarding Jack, the picture that is used most is this one, and I of course was not going to let that slide, so of course reverse image search came into play. The picture had a lot of results from forums about Berserk, but one article from 2012 was about a man named, well, Jeff Dailey, who went to Notre Dame High School and who tragically died in an apartment fire in 2007. I can't find any forum that has this picture that was posted prior to 2007, so this is the real man behind the picture, not a seemingly made-up story using a real Jeff Dailey's face. Also, the convenient high score of 16,660 is more than a little ridiculous. Something like that absolutely reads like an urban legend and almost borders on creepypasta territory, so it's pretty safe to assume the first death was completely made up. But this is only where things begin. Let's get back into the next gamer involved, Peter Berkowski. For Peter, the autopsy revealed that he had a scar on his heart. Coroner Mark Allen said, "We once had a boy who had a heart attack while studying for an exam. It just happened that he died in front of a video game." Peter's condition meant that any stressful exertion could lead to a fatal heart attack. Alan McNeil, Berserk's designer, commented that Peter was obese and had ran up the stairs to play the game, and he had also refuted Jeff Dailey's existence, which would be the only thing he got right. Peter was not obese, as the coroner's office stated. He was 5'10 and 172 pounds, which is not even close to being dangerously obese. Former owner of Friar Tuck said, "Bukowski was on that game every chance he could get. Sometimes with a friend, but a lot of the time alone. He loved it. He was a real nice kid, quiet and kind of shy. No problems." A real kid whose life was sadly cut short by an invisible ailment that sprung up during one of his favorite pastimes. Even beyond that, it's most commonly reported that Peter had actually walked to the arcade from his home, which was a whole 4 miles away. For a healthy teenager, this doesn't sound like too big of a deal. But this year happened to be one of the coldest in history of the city, and Peter was trudging through snow on his way to the arcade through it all. Even for a healthy teen, this would be pretty taxing on the body. Couple that with his heart condition, and sadly things start making more sense. So yes, Peter Berkowski is a real person who did die while playing Berserk in Friar Tuck's arcade. There's of course a picture of Peter Berkowski that floats itself through forums whenever Berserk is discussed, usually accompanied by the Jeff Dailey picture, so I figured I'd give that image the same reverse image search treatment.
To come in for a second, in doing that, we were met with typical results consisting of Jeff Dailey and various forum boards, but after recording, we did actually find the source of this image. Peter Berkowski, a film student featured in The Chronicle in 2008. This often used image of Peter is not him after all. And with that ends the tragic, true story of Peter Berkowski.
As for the last and final incident, the stabbing did really happen, and Pedro was sentenced to prison. The crowd at Friar Tuck's around this point started to get really rough. Punk-smoking Ronald Reagan's worst nightmare would usually be hidden behind the arcade. The place was starting to fall apart, and all this eventually led to another young man's life getting cut short in a place that should be somewhere you go to relax, spend a few quarters, and hopefully get the high score on anything possible. While that's the end of the stories of everyone involved in this mystery, I wanted to quickly sum up what we discovered here, starting with good old Jeff Dailey. He didn't exist. There was not a single Jeff Dailey that passed away while or after playing Berserk in 1981. Him and his story about 16,660 are completely fabricated. I mean, again, the guy's high score was essentially 666. It's as cliche as it got. In the case of Peter Berkowski, he was a real kid who did unfortunately really die of a heart condition that just happened to occur while he was playing the game. He was not obese and didn't die from physical exertion. Then there's Edward Clark Jr., again a real person who was stabbed during an altercation with another boy. Possibly a fight about playing Berserk, but that's just as believable as getting the high score 666 and then dying. One thing I do want to briefly mention that is creepy is that the town where Friar Tuck's is a giant water tower painted yellow with a smiley face, eerily similar to the villain of Berserk, Evil Otto, who is just a pixelated yellow smiley face. Funny enough, the titular villain has gained immense notoriety during all this, and many accounts discussing the mystery of Berserk have gone even farther and credited Evil Otto as to being the true evil behind this whole game, which, again, just makes everything sound more ridiculous. To draw one more parallel to Polybius, we didn't do this for no reason. Polybius was a supposed arcade game from the exact same time span that was also said to cause death to those playing it. While there was more to Polybius than just that, it should serve as a lesson learned. These mysteries seem as if they have always been a part of us, but what these cases have taught us is that the curses are actually a more modern concept than you'd think. The first mention of a Polybius curse was, believe it or not, on the internet in the late 90s, and this seems to be the same with Berserk. While I'm sure an arcade spot that did have confirmed deaths was something that people may want to avoid, the internet truly was the catalyst that made these mysteries, well, mysteries. The internet muddied the waters and created urban legends in niche areas, and this was really easy to do in an otherwise small town of Calumet, and was also easy to do in an obscure arcade for Polybius. Always remember to take video game curses with a grain of salt due to these reasons, especially ones from this far in the past where you could almost say anything and not have people technically be able to disprove it, because they weren't there. As for curses as a whole, well, we aren't just done talking about those either. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and comment down below what you think we should do next. Also, the podcast is coming back. It's on Patreon, Debunk Plus, for only $1 a month. You guys can get some really cool stuff, and we promise the podcast is coming back. We're probably going to start with some stuff that we wanted to do for videos, but didn't really quite make the cut. We've done that before. They're really cool. Go check it out, and we'll absolutely let you know when they're up. Also, our Discord, make sure to go check it out. It's the best place to communicate with Jiff and I. Instagram is as well, but we're on Discord most of the time. As always, my name is Seth from Debunk File. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.